Dr. Tori Parker.
Good morning, everyone. I heard a lot of excitement from Dr. Vollmer this morning. Are you guys ready to begin our session today? Wonderful. I'm so excited to be our first presenter this morning. I get to talk to you all about the immune system. Are you excited to learn about the immune system? I think it's a fascinating process in the body, and it's a great opportunity today for us to all become more expert in our understanding of the immune system. So this is part one of the 4 parts in our series this morning. So the first part, we will focus just on helping you understand a little bit more about how your body works. So I'll be introducing you to the different parts of your immune system, as well as giving you the opportunity to understand a little bit better how your body responds to something that could invade your body or cause problems in your body. Teach you how your body reacts to those invasions and how it protects yourself, and the different ways that the body does that. And finally, we'll talk about a little bit about how the body recognizes what is supposed to be you and what is not supposed to be you. And our bodies have very specific, really powerful ways of understanding how that works. So that's our goal today, and I hope that you are able to understand those 4 pieces as we move through our discussion today. All right, what is the immune system? It can be defined in very simple terms. First, it takes care of anything that it tries to keep anything out of your body that shouldn't be in it. So what are some of the ways that we do that? You have skin, right? We can cough, we can sneeze, we can get things out of the body and keep them from getting in. So that's the first basic part of the immune system. And the second way that we think about it is anything that does get in, we have really powerful ways of taking care of that and helping our body recover and get well again after something does get inside of our bodies. So does everyone understand the basics of the immune system? You know what it is now? Are you with me? Great. All right, let's just keep going a little deeper. This is your turn to interact and understand and learn about your immune system. So everyone, I want you with me, I want you to point on yourself each of these organs as we learn about them. Okay? So let's start at the top of our display right up here. The first 2 that you see up there are tonsils and adenoids. Okay, so everyone, here's where your tonsils are. I want you to take your finger. Your tonsils are in the back of your throat. Okay, tonsils. Okay, now how about the adenoids? Sides of your nose. Back in your sinuses up by your nose. That's where you find your adenoids. Okay, everybody found those so far? All right, now lymph nodes, the next one you see on the display, those are all over your body. So we don't have a specific place that we can point to those, but just like you have blood vessels, arteries, and veins, you also have lymph nodes and lymphatic vessels that travel throughout your whole body. So those are all over. The next one down is called the thymus. This is a gland right in the top of your chest, right behind your breastbone, right here. So everyone just points to the top of your chest, that's where your thymus is. That's an immune organ. It's just above your heart, just behind your breastbone, right here in the center of your chest. Now, everyone reach to your left side, right down here, right your ribs. There's an organ in there called the spleen. All of us have a spleen, and that's an important immune system organ as well. Okay? Now, in your gut, right here, you have your digestive system. We'll talk a little bit more about that because that's really important to our immune system. But we have a lot of important aspects of immunity found within our bowels, our intestines, in the gut part of your body. All right, and the last one, this one's, you think about some of the large bones, like in your leg. This is where you create some of your immune cells. It's right in the bone marrow, down in the bottom, inside of the bones. And that's where some of our cells that we'll talk about in a minute are created. All right, does everyone know where your immune system organs are located now? Can you raise your hand? Everybody got it? Okay, should we do it really quick? Okay, we're gonna play a game. Ready? Everybody point to your thymus. Okay? Point to your adenoids. Oh, you were a little slower that time. Okay? Point to your bone marrow. Good. Okay? Point to your tonsils. Back of your throat. Everybody got your tonsils? Okay, here's a trick question. Point to your lymph nodes. Everywhere. I've got lymph nodes all over. You've got lymph nodes everywhere. Good job. Okay, and the last one, an easy one again. Where is your intestine? Good. Nope, there's one more. What did I miss? There's a trick one. What did I miss?
Spleen.
Not muscle. Spleen! I heard it, the spleen! Good job! Where's the spleen? Right under your ribs, right on your left side.
I pay
Good.
attention in
Okay,
class.
you got it, you got it. You now know where all of your immune system organs are located. Good work. All right, let's go on. I'm excited to tell you a little bit about the intestines. Okay, now this is an important fact. 70% of your immune system is found in your digestive system. Okay, everybody repeat that after me. 70%. Ready? 70%. Why? Why is 70% of your immune system in your gut? Well, here's some good answers out there. Where do we put most of the foreign stuff that we take into our bodies? Where do we put most of it inside? We eat it, that's right. All right, right on. Took you, quick answer, excellent. Right through our mouths and our stomach. That's where we eat most of the foreign things that our body's exposed to. So our immune system is always ready to make sure that there aren't any threats or any harmful things in our food. Because that's where we are exposed to most of the foreign stuff that happens in our as we go about our day. So within the immune system, you have these sections you see on there called Peyer's patches. And these are essentially little concentrations of immune cells, and their job is to take a little sample of all of the different things that you eat and make sure that it's helpful and not harmful, and keep track of what kind of things you're exposed to in your diet, and help your body respond appropriately to that food and other things that are found in that food. So the immune system is constantly being very vigilant about anything that we might be exposed to in our life. Okay, now let's talk a little bit deeper. We've talked about the body systems, we've talked about the focus of the cells. Now we're going to talk about the individual immune cells that are found in the immune system. And we'll separate these cells into two groups, and then I'm going to tell you a little, we'll go through a little scenario and learn a little bit more about each of these cells in a way that I hope you'll be able to remember. So these 8 cells that work together, they accomplish 2 main tasks. First of all, as you saw in the beginning, they have to get rid of things that are foreign. They take care of invaders, they take care of bacteria, viruses, and other toxins that we might be exposed to. And the second one, which is also equally important, the immune system takes care of our own bodies. Sometimes something goes wrong in one of our cells. And if something goes wrong in that cell, the body has ways of recognizing that, helping get rid of that cell, and then cleaning up the leftovers, and then a new cell can replace it and help it to recover and build your body back to the way it was before. So 2 tasks, anything foreign and anything wrong. If you can do those 2 things, then you've accomplished a lot of great health. Okay, another important way, and this is how we're going to divide our cells today, is 2 types of immunity. One is called innate immunity. All of us have an innate system that is capable of responding generally to all kinds of threats. And as we learn more about transfer factor today, you'll find that transfer factor fits perfectly into our innate immune system. And the second main task is called adaptive immunity, which is where we are able to respond and prepare against a very specific attack. Some specific organism that we may have experienced in the past will be much better prepared to handle in the future. Okay, so let's talk about these top 6 cells in the innate immune system. So I'll say them once just so you can understand how they're pronounced and get to know them, and then we'll talk about them individually. So on the top you see the neutrophil, neutrophil, good. Okay. Second one to the right, eosinophil. Good. Eosinophil. Okay. Next one down, basophil. Good. Basophil. Okay. Monocyte. Good. Natural killer cell. And macrophage. Okay, everybody got those? Thank you. Good to hear you repeating them. That's great. All right, so now I want you to imagine you're not in this room at the moment. You're at home and you're preparing a meal. For that meal, you've decided to chop some vegetables. So you've got your knife out, you've got your carrots or your other vegetables, you're chopping your vegetables. Suddenly you hear a noise. And you miss the vegetable and chop your finger instead. Has that ever happened to any of you? It's happened to me a lot. That happens a lot. You get distracted and there goes your finger instead of your vegetable. All right, so let's use the scenario of a cut finger, and I'm going to compare that to an emergency. Let's say a car accident on the road. So each one of these cells, as we talk about them, you can relate to some aspect of an emergency. Because when you cut your finger to your body, that is a small emergency, and it has a very specific response to that emergency. So the first phase of that response is with our friends, the neutrophils. So as you first cut your finger, the neutrophils are the emergency response team. They're the ambulance. They're the first to arrive to that cut. And they're going to come in and they're going to immediately start attacking bacteria that may have been on your vegetables or on your knife or on your finger that now are inside your finger. And they're going to start eating up those damaging things. And there's a lot of these neutrophils in your blood, see, 50 to 70%. And so they get there quickly. They're the first to arrive. They're the emergency medical responders. Now, shortly after the emergency begins to occur, we also begin to need to control the damage at the site. So if we are in a car accident, what could happen in a car accident? Might be a fire. There might be somebody nearby that got hurt. There might be other cars on the road. So I always think of the eosinophil as the fire truck that's arrived after the ambulance. So the fire truck comes in and makes sure there's no fires. They immediately kind of start off the allergic response, the inflammatory responses. You can think of inflammation sometimes like a fire. It helps you remember it. And so this one is a smaller circulating, only 2 to 4%, but it begins to kind of block the area, keep other cars from getting into an accident, and making sure there aren't any fires in the area. Third, we have the basophil. This one comes along, and normally, when you cut your finger, blood will start to clot, and then it gets kind of hard, and the basophil comes along and starts to secrete fluid and help you to keep the blood from clotting too quickly so that your full immune response can get there and other cells have a place to work, to keep the fluid there to work. So I think of this as like the police that come along shortly thereafter. The police come in and they put their police tape around and they cordon off the area and they let the detectives come in and investigate the accident. Make sure that there's plenty of room for the investigator to come in and to do their job. So this is, in the body, means serotonin, histamine-inducing inflammation, some swelling, some redness to help your body recover. Now, along the way, floating around in your cells, you have these cells called monocytes. These are floating around in the blood, looking for an opportunity to help. So the monocyte is going to discover, as it floats around, that you've got a cut finger. It's going to go into that space, and it's going to then change into the next cell that we have right here, which is called the macrophage. So the macrophage is like your victim's advocate. There's someone that comes in and they help out the folks that were involved in the accident. They make sure they're okay, help them with their recovery, and they stay. The macrophage will stay in the area, making sure that any bacteria or dead cells or injured cells from your knife cut get cleaned up, removed, making room for the skin to heal so that you can recover and have a normal finger again. So that's the macrophage's job. Comes in and cleans up and sticks around until everything's all taken care of. All right, and our last cell, I think of the natural killer cell, at least in our example. It does many things, but one of the things it does is it's a great communicator. So the natural killer cell can help us with our understanding of what's going on around. It calls in, sends out what are called cytokines, communication signals to other cells. It helps clean things up, helps respond to the threats. It kind of has a job, does lots of different things. But One way that I thought of this is like the dispatcher, the radio control that helps bring in the fire and the ambulance and the victims advocates and the police and helps coordinate everything and helps communicate across the board and helps clean things up afterwards, so they're always around. All right, how did that work? Do you have a clear understanding now of how our innate immune system responds? Can you hopefully remember cutting your finger and remember that you have lots of help during that process in your immune system? All right, let's move on now. We'll talk about the adaptive immune system for a minute. This one has two specific cell types involved in it, the T cell and the B cell. So we'll talk about those two now. First up is our T cell. The T cell includes the name T because it is formed in the thymus. Everybody point to your thymus. Good, you still remember. Thymus, that's where it got its name, that's where the cell matures. Now it attacks specifically, so now we're talking about rather than a normal emergency response, this is more of a very specially trained team of this Navy SEALs or the elite special forces. They can come in and target some very specific activity very effectively. It includes several different types. We're going to not go into those in a lot of detail, but there are helper T cells and cytotoxic T cells. Slight differences, and they have a little bit different roles, but their job is to be a very specific response to something that you may have seen before, which is why you don't get the same illness more than once in a time because of your adaptive immune system. So one way to think about T cells and how they do this job, every cell in your body has markers on the surface of its cell. Likewise, bacteria, viruses, others also have a very specific, unique shape, specific molecules on the surface of them that allow us to tell, is this me, or is this something else that should not be here? So if it's you, it's called a self receptor you see on the right. And it bumps up against the cell and says, yep, that's part of me, yep, that's part of me, yep, that's part of me. Well, wait a minute, what are you doing here? And that is not part of me, you are not supposed to be here, so we need now to build a response and do something about it. So that is the primary principle of T cell self-recognition. Now the B cell, part of our delayed or adaptive immune system, gets its name from the bone marrow. Where's your bone marrow? Big bones, right? You have bones in your legs, lots of places. Bone marrow is where B cells mature. So they're produced by antibodies, and they send these antibodies out around the body looking to bind up to things that are not supposed to be there. One of their main roles is part of our memory. Remember we talked about recognize, respond, and remember. Remembering health threats is one of the roles that the B cell has in our immune system. And a way to remember this is to think of it like a lock and a key. So every time a B cell produces an antibody, it's a very specific key that only fits in one door. And so as antibody is produced, it will only recognize and bind to a specific invader with one very specific type of something that should not be there. And whenever it recognizes that something's there that shouldn't be, it very quickly starts producing millions and millions of antibodies to allow your body to respond to that threat. And now we're going to take and put it all together. While the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system work independently and have their own roles, they also talk to each other. So the important thing to remember here that this gets even more complicated than this. If you've ever seen immune graphs and charts, they're massive and there's so many different things that happen and we're learning about and understanding how the immune system works. But fundamentally, the innate immune system cells talk to each other, they bump into each other, they communicate with each other in many different ways, allowing you the ability to be healthy, to respond to threats, and to recover when you are exposed to one in your life. The immune system is fascinating and powerful. All right, let's summarize our points today from my portion of our training. First off, the immune system is everywhere, right? We have organs all up and down our whole body. The immune system is innate, where you can immediately respond to something, such as a cut on your finger, and it can be adaptive, where if you got sick once, it makes sure you don't get that illness a second time. Keeps things out, gets rid of anything that gets in, and it has a number of different cells involved in that process, and that allows us to immediately respond and do all the different things that need to happen to recover from that threat. All right. We doing volunteers? I think we should. Do I have somebody who wants to come up and answer? I have 2 questions. Raise your hand. Barbara's going to come pick you out. Barbara's right here in the front. So we want somebody who's brave. Wants to see if they can come up. Barbara's going down the middle right here. Looks like we have someone selected who's willing to come on up and take our quiz. Do we have someone that can help with the, make sure, I understand some of it, but quick translator? Barbara's working right here. Looks like we have got lots of possibilities. Thank you all for volunteering to come on up. All right, we have 2 right coming up right here. Thanks for your willingness to come and be part of our first folks to be quizzed. Just go ahead, you 2 right here, come on up. Yeah, please. Come on out in the light for just a minute. Thank you very much. Okay, are you ready for your question? Okay. What percent of immune system is in the gut, in the stomach?
50-70%.
70.
Yes, that's correct. We said 70%. It is a range. You can get me a better answer. Let's check our answer. Yes. Okay, one more question. Okay, name 3 of the 8 immune cells that we talked about.
Neutrófilos, basófilos, eosinófilos, mastocitos, monocitos y
Congratulations, you named almost, I think, all of them. Yes. Paying attention. No, it's the same. Y'all understood, right? You got them all? All right. Thank you, congratulations. Thanks for coming and being participants in our workshop. Good goal. All right. As we invite our participants up, you'll get a chance to participate later on in our show. You call it a show? Later on in our training today. And so Barbara will make sure that you speak to Barbara after each of the presentations, and you'll get a chance to participate again a little bit later as we continue through our training. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm grateful to have been part of our presentation this morning, and I will now leave. Thank you so much.
If you need translation services, please direct your attention to the screen for frequencies. Si necesita servicio de traducción, por favor mire las frecuencias en la pantalla. Now, please welcome